hello and welcome to this Tuesday's edition of ET Now Startup Central. I'm Nantha Rang. I'll be with you the next 30 minutes. Startup Central is, of course, the first and only daily show of its kind in all of India. Startups, entrepreneurships, as well as digital and technology. So let's get straight down to it. One of the big stories that we're tracking today, the website of the ruling Bharatiya Janata Party went offline today. That's after hackers defaced it with expletives as well as memes. The website actually shows a video of Prime Minister Narendra Modi trying to shake hands with his German counterpart, Chancellor Angela Merkel. But Merkel ignores Modi and walks past him. It was first spotted and brought to public limelight by actually from the Congress party, Divya Spandana, who was amongst the first to tweet about the hack and said in a tweet, "If you're not watching BJP website right now, you're missing out," unquote. No one has so far claimed responsibility. A message from the website administration says this website remains under maintenance and will be back shortly. So I'm going to discuss this with cybersecurity expert Rizwan Sheikh, who's joining us on the phone line. Hi, Rizwan. I think hacks is becoming something that a lot of organizations, political parties, even governments have to deal with and have to face with. All of this at a time when, let's face it, for whatever reasons, India doesn't have a strong cyber security law at all. We've had commissions on it, committees on it. It now needs to be made and enacted into a law. Having said that, for the BJP, this is not good news ahead of elections. It's also a bit scary at a time when, there are tensions which exist with Pakistan, when you have all of these geopolitical tensions on. The timing is, of course, very curious as well.
Absolutely. So we think hacking is becoming very, very common, especially on the websites. And if you see the stats on certain websites, we see every day in the world approximately 89 to 90,000 websites are getting hacked every day. Now, this hacking is not necessarily hacking into data or financial information, but there's something also known as defacing the website. That is just replacing the homepage of the website with any particular message we want. For today's example, the official website of BJP was defaced and the homepage was replaced with some message.
But Rizwan, even forget the BJP, I remember the official government website, which is called PIB, was hacked last year. I remember I was actually anchoring during market hours when this press release went up, uploaded on the PIB, which was being credited to the president, on a whole host of failures of the government. I remember when I was anchoring it live and it hit the laptop, I was reading it out, and something told me, hey, this doesn't seem right. So we at ET actually had taken a screenshot of it live while anchoring because it just seems so bizarre that the government would be criticizing itself. But we've seen government websites also being hacked, and even then, we don't have a cybersecurity law.
Right. So laws are in place. We have Information Technology Act 2000 and its amendment in place. But somewhere down the line, more than the law, we need to work on the cyber security aspect of it. Many of the organizations, including many of the governing bodies, have made multiple things online, live, not only websites, but also applications. But somewhere down the line, they lack their cyber security audit. So either they undergo the audit, which is not very well correctly been implemented, or they don't undergo the audit at all. So that is the major concern why majority of even Indian government websites are getting hacked, and there are many organizations which are also vulnerable. So there is something known as VAPT, which stands for Vulnerability Assessment and Penetration Testing. This is the basic security methodology which is being followed in the entire world to make their website or network hack-proof. Now, this is what is mandatory that every website of government should undergo so that they remain hack-proof and none of such attack can happen.
Let me rephrase. We don't have an effective or a stringent cyber law. Like, let me ask you, supposing they find out who hacked the BJP, what's the maximum punishment, penalty, or imprisonment?
is but obvious a crime, and there are laws in place, and under certain sections of the IT Act, if the criminal is caught, he will be punishable under certain sections, and even there will be sections of defamation and other stuffs can be applied because it was a troll or a kind of meme which was posted on the website and defaming our prime minister. So multiple sections can be implemented, but finding the criminal in this scenario again.
What is the punishment? What is the punishment? Supposing you strike, you strike dirt and you find the criminal. Supposing that itself is a Herculean task. Even if that happens, what is the punishment?
The punishment for hacking goes up to 2 years as well. So definitely, there is 2 years imprisonment is possible in this scenario, and there can be multiple. Like if the lawyers wants to get the punishment more stringent, so they can definitely apply certain more sections. Like it is not just the hacking, but also defaming the prime minister with his pic and trolling him out. So, of course, minimum of 2 years with multiple penalties is possible under this scenario.
Yeah. Okay, Rizwan, I'm going to leave it over there. So whichever way you look at it, the official website of the Bharatiya Janata Party hacked today. Memes of Prime Minister Narendra Modi being defaced, being ignored by Angela Merkel, all of that taking place. Timing, of course, very curious, just before elections, and also at a time when tensions are on with Pakistan. But it's a reality that all of us in India have to get used to. We have been seeing of late more and more organizations getting used to hacking. And, this brings me to my next story, which is kind of related to the first. And in fact, the second one becomes more scary because of what has happened. So let me tell you what we're going to be discussing next. We're going to be discussing the president promulgating an ordinance to make into reality the amendments to the Aadhaar Act 2016. These amendments are exactly what had been contained in the bill that was passed in the Lok Sabha on 4th of January 2019. Before I tell you what my panel is, so let me just tell you the new Aadhaar rule. Voluntary use of Aadhaar by private entities, use Aadhaar to open bank accounts and get SIM cards, can use virtual identity to conceal actual Aadhaar number, can conceal Aadhaar number once holder reaches age of 18. Private companies can perform authentication, and proposes deletion of section 57, which is to do with private entities and which was, of course, part of the Aadhaar Supreme Court verdict, the right to privacy, etc., and provides for civil penalties for violation of the Aadhaar Act. So that's why I'm saying it's connected, because, we just talked about hacking of government organizations, hacking of political parties, and the enlargement of the use of Aadhaar. The gentlemen you see on your screens are going to be with us for the next 20 minutes. Rahul Narayan, advocate at Supreme Court. Adil Shetty, CEO and co-founder of BankBazaar.com. He's with me in our studio in Noida. And Harshil Mathur, the CEO and founder of Razorpay. Rahul, I'm going to come to you first before I go on to the other experts that we have here and who use Aadhaar and maybe have no choice but to use Aadhaar. I was just talking to a cybersecurity expert about hacking. The Bharatiya Janata Party website was hacked today. In the past, you've seen PIB being hacked. But you've also seen the chairman of the UIDI time and again say that Aadhaar cannot be hacked, that Aadhaar data is absolutely safe. But you keep seeing ethical hackers try to prove that wrong as well. So, before I get into the pros and cons of going the ordinance ways and the pros and cons of what has been promulgated in the ordinance, this seems bizarre.
See, it's very difficult for anyone to actually take seriously a claim like that the site cannot be hacked or the data is not hackable. I mean, it's like asking for trouble, isn't it, by saying that you are absolutely perfect? And I think this has sort of been one of the largest issues with this project.
But they've done it, Rahul. The problem is that they've done it.
It's initiators
the problem
and those
is
who
they've done
control
it. I don't know how sensible it is for anybody to claim that they cannot be hacked. But the point is that the UIDI chairman has done it.
Yeah. So and sadly, I think the indication simply for all of us to just have to live with it, I suppose. Although we are trying to ensure that the damage which is caused to normal people is as minimized as possible. But yes, I mean, I think we can safely foresee a couple of speed bumps along the way in any event. as more and more data breaches are discovered. And if you, I mean, you may have read a few weeks back there was the SBI complaint. Then a couple of weeks back again there was a complaint by a person who said that his one of the enrollers who said that his biometrics had been hacked and they had been used to enroll all kinds of people in. So one, the data itself, whether it's safe or not, is a big issue, and two, the quality of the data which is there in the database also is open to question. If they have, for example, banned 33,000 enrollers, then what about the data what the enrollers bought? And considering that all public services are to be linked to this, it's a little scary and a little worrisome. Hello,
okay, Adil Shetty, let me come to you now. Very pertinent points being raised by Rahul Narayan over there, but I haven't brought you to my studio to discuss hacking. I was only trying to find a correlation between the first and second story today on Startup Central. Tell me, how does life change for you and for your company, bankbazaar.com and policybazaar.com, post the promulgation of the ordinance?
So let me answer it in two parts, right? One, what changes now that eKYC is possible for banks and telcos. Then I'll talk about companies which are not banks because they fall into a separate bucket. Now, Aadhaar eKYC has always been a game changer for financial inclusion. Given the size of this country, given the costs of going to people's houses, collecting driver's licenses, getting it countersigned, getting it verified, giving you your loan in 5 days, we were not able to drive financial inclusion because it was so cumbersome to work with so much paper, and the paper was open to fraud. I could fake a bank statement, I could fake a PAN card. The nice thing with Aadhaar eKYC coming back, right, we are provided with a feature which is instantaneous, paperless and presenceless in order to authenticate identity. So I think from financial inclusion perspective in India, this is a game changer. It's good that for entities which meet the required privacy and security norms, Aadhaar eKYC will be provided according to the ordinance. Now coming to Bank Bazaar, right? The ordinance only allows banks to make use of eKYC today, and it says that all other organizations will be judged based upon their information security and privacy and the constraints put on them in terms of what and how they can use this data to enable financial services, and that will be notified in future. So as of now, nothing has changed for Bank Bazaar. So I think the industry as a whole, Digital India Collective for Empowerment, is coming together to say, why only banks? Let's look at people working in investments. Let's look at regulated entities working in insurance. So we should give it to entities which need it to drive financial inclusion, which meet the norms of information security and information privacy.
Adil, I take all as well, but thanks for being candid and telling us how all of this changes and what it could mean for financial conclusions as well. Now, if I could come to Harshil, please. You've seen this development for fintech players, a long-standing demand with othermost being as far as verification goes. You just heard Adil touch upon that and why it is so important for non-banks as well. Do you have enough clarity or do you still need more clarity?
Yeah, so one part of that ordinance that I looked upon, so of course the eKYC one is only for banks and telcos, so it doesn't really help us in any way. But if you look at the offline KYC piece, that says that offline KYC can be used by reporting entities. Now the reporting entities means anyone who has to report things to regulators. So anyone who falls under the PMLA guidelines would fall into it. I think that can be interpreted and expanded further. So if the PMLA, if RBI comes up with newer guidelines around PMLA allowing payment players and other forms of fintech players to be known as reporting entities, we could get offline KYC. And even that would be good enough for us because today the physical KYC is prone to so many flaws, as Adil already pointed out. And offline KYC, although it's not the best one, it will still solve for a lot of challenges that we face in physical KYC because at least there'll be a verification of the KYC document or the verification of the KYC that is submitted by the customer. It may not be instant, but at least it will be better than the process that we follow. So I think if the guidelines are modified to support the offline KYC piece, I think that would be sufficient for us as well, and it will definitely improve the cost of doing business for companies like us.
If I could come to Rahul, the lawyer that we have on the panel right now, you've heard both of these gentlemen who are in the business talking about how eKYC is also needed by them. But if I could play devil's advocate, we've got Adil here and we've got Harshil here who have good businesses, they're genuine businesses with good intent. But that's not true for every app. That's not true for everyone out there. So isn't it better to err on the side of caution? These are also sizable companies when we talk about Razorpay or we talk about bankbazaar.com. For example, they may have procedures, they may have robustness in protecting data, but that's not true for everyone. Like if Uber can get hacked in San Francisco and lose credit card information, it can happen here as well. I'm not even just talking about hacking. I'm talking about fly-by-night operators who might be collecting data. These two, like I said, are genuine businesses.
Look, there are 2 or 3 very, very important things which should be brought into mind. And let me say that I have a impersonal admiration for our tech entrepreneurs and our fintech entrepreneurs, and I wish them every success. Although this is something where we will just have to disagree, because I think this is too dangerous a tool to be put in the hands of private companies. Now, 2 quick things. Firstly, the Supreme Court specifically, and all 5 judges agreed on this, struck down what was the earlier regime, which allowed private companies to use Aadhaar for any purpose. So that has been specifically struck down as being disproportionate, because they said whether or not the government wanted it, this would enable a kind of commercial capture of data and a commercial exploitation and commercial surveillance. So they have all struck it down. Now, when a legislation is struck down by the courts as unconstitutional, you cannot sort of enact the same thing over again and make it, try to do the same thing which you could not do earlier. And the way I look at it is that, if a general, simple enabling provision like Section 57 could not stand judicial scrutiny, I don't see how this ordinance also will stand, assuming, of course, this could have validly have been passed as an ordinance, which is the second issue. And anyway, a second and more important point is all of this has been done without any need about the data protection law at all. I mean, I would have thought at the very least the data protection law should have started the entire process before allowing all of this, which has been specifically banned by the courts. And I see both arguments of Adil and the other gentleman whose name I couldn't get. Both the arguments were that of convenience. Now, convenience is certainly an important thing, and cost of business is very important as well. But surely, I think the protection of individual rights and personal freedom is pretty important as well. I mean, the fact is that nowhere else in the world do you have a system like this, which is an all-encompassing card, which encounters which you can.
Your point. I would take a point, but let's go to the.
There are all kind of dangers associated with it.
Fair point. And I think you should know your co-panelists. You've got Adil Shetty here from bankbazaar.com, and you also have Harshal Mathur, the founder of Razorpay. Having said that, Adil, let me come to you now. It's going down the ordinance way. You've seen this government do what the previous UPA government did with Vodafone. They did it in the budget. This government has decided to circumvent or go around it with an ordinance for Aadhaar. Having said that, what does it mean for businesses? You've got an ordinance today. It's only a matter of time before I think somebody's going to challenge the Supreme Court. You don't know whether it's going to stand judicial scrutiny. Are you expected in the meantime to spend money, to be ready for it, only for it to be taken away? What does all of this mean for a business like yours? Like, how are you supposed to prepare for it?
Financial inclusion is a big deal. Financial inclusion is a big deal. So we're talking about the lives of millions and millions of consumers as to whether they can access a bank account, whether they can access a loan, whether they can access an insurance product. So this is fundamental to how we as a country will grow, how we as a economy will grow. How will we make sure we truly democratize finance? This is a big, big deal. Now, we believe, right, and again, we can agree to disagree, that in the Supreme Court judgment, it was said that if the backing of law was provided and it was on a purely voluntary basis, let the consumer decide. If the consumer wants to wait 5 days and give paperwork, let them do it. If they want instantaneous presence-less convenience in a secure system where civil penalties are defined for misuse of that data, let the consumer take the step forward. The data protection law will obviously support and tighten this framework much, much more. I think for companies, right, what we will do is we will wait for the banks to adopt it. We'll wait to see which other reporting entities get notified to get eKYC access. Like Harshal said, offline KYC is anyway possible because the consumer is downloading and uploading. So I think we'll move forward, assuming that when the Parliament convenes again, that this will now be passed as a law, because it passed the Lok Sabha, it got listed in the Rajya Sabha, it couldn't get discussed. So we will proceed with a positive footing, saying that this is the way forward, and we will wait for the next government to evaluate if it's challenged in court, for the court to evaluate. But we're confident, right, that this is the crux of what we need to make India a country that
like
delivers.
I said, I was asking Rahul this. You are a genuine businessman with a genuine business. So while you might push for eKYC, how is someone who's supposed to be working with someone know that, yeah, this is a genuine business with good intent? How do you distinguish? Yes, of course, financial inclusion, the most important, democratization, very important, but how do you weed out the bad guys?
The two attempts or two standards which are being established in this ordinance. So firstly, right, this is only being offered today to banks and telcos. So it's not being offered to anyone else. In future, it said that the authority will define standards of data protection and privacy, and only entities meeting that will be given the requester access. Thirdly, right, penalties have been defined, including financial penalty, penalty in terms of prison time for misuse of the data. Now, the data protection law is a separate angle of protection, which was discussed earlier, and that is further going to strengthen it. So these are, I think, the standards which are being established. So even today, right, only very specific entities meeting the information security and privacy norms are being given the requester license, and that norm has already been established in the amendment.
Enough checks and balances exist at the moment. Let's see what the new government also does, but there are checks and balances, and of course I think India is also waiting to see what it is, whether it's this government or the next government does with Justice Sri Krishna's recommendations when it comes to data protection and data laws. Harshil, if I could come to you, very pertinent points being raised by Adil over there, and he's convinced there are enough checks and balances in place. What I want to ask you is that when all of you folks ask for eKYC based on Aadhaar, is it a function of cost, or do you genuinely believe that is the best way?
It's multiple things. So one is cost, of course, and cost is not just for the business. In the end, all these costs get passed on to the consumer. So if cost of servicing a loan is about 500 rupees and it could go down to 50 rupees, in the end we are enabling more customers to be able to get a loan, because there are more customers who can afford to apply for that loan now. The other more important thing is also safeguarding of PMLA and other guidelines, because today there is no way for me to verify a KYC. If I collect a driving license or a PAN card or a passport, there are very few KYCs, almost negligible KYCs in the country, which can be digitally verified. Like, it's just a photocopy, you can get notarized, you can try so many things, but there is no foolproof way of verifying whether the KYC is valid or not. And we have seen so many use cases, so many cases come up where criminals, even terrorists, and everyone else has been able to secure SIM cards and everything through fake KYC in this country, because it's very easy to fake a photocopy. What Aadhaar, and we don't really care whether it's Aadhaar or any other form of digital ID, but the point of a digital ID is that we can verify the authenticity. We can verify that the ID belongs to the person who's furnishing it. We can verify that he's the one who is responsible for it. The chances of identity theft and other things go down significantly. And that is significant because it affects our the frauds and the other issues that we'll face in the future. If we are 100% certain that the KYC is of this guy, then we can also make the process much more easy for the person doing that. So I think cost is one side of it, but more importantly, it's also the authenticity is so much easier to establish on a digital ID, while on a physical ID, you'll always have challenges of counterfeit.
That is supposed to be the only identity. With that, gentlemen, we're completely out of time, so I'd like to thank all three of you for taking the time out and joining us this Tuesday evening on Startup Central to talk about the new Aadhaar ordinance. And folks, with that, it's a wrap. Many thanks for tuning in.